Hello guys, welcome back. This is Joel Mendonca, and in this video we'll be looking into another interesting security appliance, which is the WSA, right? Web Security Appliance. Great. So let's dive into this interesting appliance. So on the left hand side you can see I have a very simple topology setup. I have my R1 router, which is basically simulating the whole internet over here, and I have my R2, which is like the default gateway for the network around here. And this is how I have set it up. So this is my WSA, which is basically a VM, right? Which is and I also have another PC which is basically acting like a client, which is again a VM, right? And these both VMs are on my host laptop, right? I can show you the VM. So this is my WSA VM, right? And this is basically going to be my Windows, right? Windows client VM as well. Okay, so that is the basic setup. So what do we do to start with? Let's go and configure my routers, R1, R2. Then let's go and configure the PC as well. To start with R1, R2, it's going to be pretty simple. The R1 router is going to have a very simple configuration, which is basically the IP address on the interface, right? Which is 192.1.100.1, and the loopback address, I'm going to put a loopback address on my R1, which is 1.1.1. We'll also put up a HTTP server, enable the secret Cisco 123, and we are going to put a default route as well towards my 200.0 network pointing towards R2, right? So it's going to be this one. Let me show you the picture. So on my R1, I'm going to put a default gateway towards my 192.1.200.0, which is this network. Let me write it down. I think that'll be easier. So this is 192.1.200.0 network, right? And okay, let's duplicate this. Let's go top, and this is going to be 192.1.100.0 network, right? So these are the two networks which I have, and so that's the configuration which goes on R1. What happens on R2? Okay, so on R2 we are going to again put in the very simple basic IP address configuration, right? Which is the IP address, the interface is 100.2 here, right? This interface, which is Ethernet 0/0, on the other side again it will be 192.1.200.2, right? So that's this one, and I also have a default route which is pointing towards 192.1.100.1, which is pointing towards the outside of the network. Because this is the default gateway, I need to have a default route on this which says that any traffic, the default route has to be the internet. Okay, that's done. Now let's also set up a DNS server. So DNS server is very important, right? So you know that on the routers we can set up a DNS server as well. Just now we set up a HTTP server on R1. Similarly, we are going to set up a DNS server, right? And this is the DNS server. When I say DNS server, you need to put in the entries for the DNS server. So let's create a bunch of entries which we are going to use later for our testing purposes. So the DNS server is going to basically have the entries for ESPN, Cisco, XXX, CNN, Gamble, and BBC. These are the websites, and for this I have hard coded the IP address to be 1.1.1, which is basically nothing but the loopback address of R1, right? We are basically simulating the whole internet and the DNS server in this exercise, right? I think that is done. So what do we do next? Let's pick this up and put it on the router before we do any other kind of configuration. So let's do this on R1, right? Let's do the next piece on R2. Right? Great. So we have done that. Now, okay, give me a minute. Yeah, so we have done the basic configuration on R1 and R2. Now, what do we do next? We are yet to do the configuration on my PC. So let's do that. But I think I've already done it, so I'm gonna just show it to you how I did it. So let me go down to the PC. So this is my PC. So what am I supposed to do here? If I go down to my networks, right, you can open this the network settings of my Windows, right? Ethernet, you can go to the change adapter settings, and if you see here, right, if you see the Ethernet settings here, let's go to properties, right, if you see the IP address, right, which has been configured, you'll see that the IP address is 192.1.200.91. so this is my client, IP address on my client, which is the PC, right? And what I have done is right, so once you configure that, we should be able to ping the loopback address of let me keep this here, right? So once we have configured the IP address over here, which is 192.1.200.91, we so this topology what I've built here, I've basically used a cloud here, right, which means I'm connecting my GNS3 which is the logical or virtual topology, I'm connecting it to my PC using this cloud, right? So if I show you the configuration of this is nothing but the cloud which I'm using, and you can see that Ethernet 1 is actually my interface, right? So this is the Ethernet 1 is the interface which I have created explicitly for the traffic, which basically connects my PC and the VMs to my logical or basically the virtual topology which is created on my GNS3, which is consisting of these two routers. Anyway, now our main intention is basically to have a ping to the R1, or basically the loopback of R1 from the PC over here. Let's see if that works. Let's open the command window, and so what I have done here is I have also added two routes, right? On my Windows PC, I've added two routes from two routes towards the 1.1 network, right? I can actually show you how to add it. I've already added it on that, so maybe I'll just write it down here just for your reference. So this is how you add a route on your Windows PC. So you go to route, you write route, and you write add, right? And the destination is 1.1.1. The IP mask is 255, my bad, 255.255 and .255, right? I think I missed the keyword here, just mask, right? So address, you write the IP address and then you put the mask and you put that next gateway, which is our next hop, which is 192.1.200.2, right? For the PC, right? For the PC, where's the picture, where's the diagram? Yeah, for PC the next hop is 192.1.200.2, and that's why I need to put that over here, right? So you do that for right on the PC, you basically do that for the 1.1 network, and you also do it for the same thing. Let me just pick this up. The only change is going to be I also will do it for not only the loopback but also for 192.1.100.0 network as well. 100.0 network, and this is going to be .0, and the rest everything is there. So these are the two lines which I will have to run on my CMD, but I've already run it, so basically the ping should actually work now. Ping failed to transmit, so probably I have not done that, so maybe let me do that again. Maybe it got deleted when I shut the system down. Let me put this. Okay, probably have to write it down. Okay, so route add, my bad, route add 1.1.1, right? Mask is important. 255 5.255 and it's 192.1 and dot 200.2. Good. Okay, so I need to open this in my administrated mode. That's bad, so I have to do that again. I will run at administrator. I think that did not work. Let's run it as administrator, and there you go. Now it should work. So it's going to be route address mask is 255, and I'm going to put 192.1.200.2, right? So the route got added. Now the only change here is going to be let's put 192.100 dot, instead of 1 it's going to be dot 0, and the mask is going to be 255.255.0. That looks good. So once we have added this, now let's see if this works. Yeah, so you can see that the ping is actually working from the PC to my 1.1 network, right? It should also work for the 192.1.100.1 as well, right? That's good. So we have put up the connectivity. Okay, so now what do we do next? Let's go back to my router. Okay, let's go back to my router. Let's also check the DNS part. This is my router, R1, R2. R2 is also acting like my DNS server. So now that we have put all of these DNS servers, let's check if that works. Let me clear the screen. So let's check if the DNS part works. So what we'll have to do is let's have to do a ping from R2 to one of the DNS entries, which is www.espn.com, right? Let's try that. Did I do something wrong? Unrecognized host. Did I put a ESPN? I'm not sure. I have to check. Give me a minute. Show run. Okay, so I think I have not put the entries yet. So let's put the entries again. Maybe so these are my entries. Now if I do a ping to one of these, yeah, so there you go. The ping to espn.com works, right? That's pretty good. Now what do we do next? So this is how it works, right? Web security appliance, we are basically going to use it in a transparent mode. What does that mean? So when a PC over here tries to, this is a client, right? The PC is a client, and it is trying to reach out to the internet for a particular website, let's say espn.com. So what we intend to do is when the request is generated from here, it has to go to my default gateway, which is R2, right? It is going to go to default gateway, right? Because that's what we have set it, right? So it's going to go to the default gateway, but then from the default gateway we have to send that traffic, right? All the web traffic has to be sent to the WSA, right, for the check against various policies which we will be creating on WSA. And once that is done, once the policies are checked, then the WSA will make a request, right, and that request will be then passed outside to the outside world or to the outside internet. So that is what we are trying to do, right? So every single request which is created from our PC or the client will not go directly outside the internet. It will be routed, or it will be sent from the default gateway towards, right, redirected basically is the word. So it will be redirected from the default gateway towards my WSA, which will then inspect it, and then we are basically sending it to the outside world, right? So that's the flow which we are going to follow. So for doing this, we need to set up a kind of a protocol between my PC, which is between my client and the default gateway, and this protocol which we are going to use is called as the WCCP, right? And how do you set that WCCP on R2, right? So you have to set it up on R2 at the same time you have to set it up on your WSA as well, right? So how do you do that? So for doing that, we will go to my R2 router, and basically we are going to configure certain things, right? We are going to first define the version of WCCP we are going to use, right? And next is we are going to define the access list, right? We are going to define the access list of my basically the IP address of WSA as part of an access list. So this is how we are going to do, right? So my WSA basically has an IP address of 192.1.200.50, which I'm yet to configure, but I will configure in few seconds. And once I do that, I'm going to also put in a access list for the traffic which has to be sent, right? So we need to define the traffic which has to be sent from R2, which has to be redirected from R2 towards my WSA, and that's going to be my traffic on port 80 and 8000, right? And once we do that, we are going to put in all these commands which we did, as part of this. So we're going to do IP WCCP 99 is basically like I would say a key which has to be same when we configure on both the WSA and the router, and the group list, right, and the redirect. So basically the group list one, the one basically depicts or basically connects this access list, which in turn has the IP address of the WSA, right? So we are basically connecting that, and then we need to say the redirect list. And what is the ACL representing the redirect list? It's 101, and the password is basically going to be Cisco 11, which has to be configured on both the sides, and it should be very much the same. Now once you do that, we are going to go on R2, and on which interface do you want me to put this on? Obviously the inside interface, and that's why you're going to put it as Ethernet 0/1 IP WCCP. Use the key which you created earlier. I'm going to put this, right? Let's pick this up and put it on R2 for now. Yes, now let's go and play with our WSA for a bit and do the basic configuration on my WSA, right, which is important. Okay, give me a minute. Maybe before doing that, let me finish off one last configuration which is left on the PC side, right? So what we did till now, what we have done, let's recap. So we have configured R1, R2, we have also configured my PC, and there is connectivity between my PC and the and we have also configured R2 to be my DNS server, and we have connectivity between PC and my R1. We checked it by doing a ping from the PC to 1.1 network, and all of that is good. Right now, if I open the browser on my PC and if I try to log into www.espn.com, will it work? It will not. The reason being, we need to define the host file in my PC, right? So let me show you how do we do that. So again, let's go to probably the notepad here, right? Very safe, very amazing tool to use. So let's open which file. We have to open a file here. So let's open let's go to, where do we find the host file? So you go to the C drive, right? You go to C drive, you go to Windows, you go to system 32 drivers and etc. Probably find all the files. You find a host file here, right? If you open this file, right, you will basically find normally only these two entries, right? So I have basically added the extra entries here, right? And what does this basically tell? It is like, it basically maps the IP address with the URLs, right, which you can reach out to now, right? So now I have already put this up. You can do this as well. Once you do this, just save it, and once you do that, we will be, let's pick up one of this, right? Let's pick up this and let's put it on the browser here. Sorry, it's www.espn.com, right? So espn.com, right? So it's asking for the password, which means it is basically trying to log into my router, and the password is Cisco 123, right? So there you go, we have the router R1, you know, and which means it's basically working, right? We are able to access the websites as well from the PC, right? So you can just edit the host file and you know you'll be able to do that. So once you're done with that, so we have done the basic configuration on R1, R2. We have also established DNS servers on R2, and we have also created a WCCP kind of a protocol between my R2 and PC, so that you know we will have all the traffic being we have created a WCC protocol between R2 and WSA, which means all the traffic which is going from PC to R2 will be redirected now towards WSA, which will be investigated here, and then the request will be sent back, right, so that into the outside network, right? So we have done this. So what is left now? Now we have to do some configuration on my right, so we have to do my configuration on my WSA, right? So let's do that. So let's go to WSA. Where is my WSA? It's here. So this is my WSA, right? So let me actually reduce the screen a bit. I think that will be useful. Right, so this looks good. Now what we do is we'll start with configuring, or maybe let me keep it as a full screen. I think this is not going to help. Right, let's go with interface config. So we're going to type in the word interface config. There you go. So once you configure the interface, once you type in the interface config, it will ask you options. I'm going to edit the management. So I basically need to configure the management, right? So let me type in edit. To edit, right? Let me do it. So it is asking me what interface would I want to edit. So I would want to edit the management interface. So I'm going to type in 1. Would you like to configure an IP address? Yes, I would like to configure an IP address. It's going to be 192.160, not 160, sorry, 1.200.50. Let's give that, right? And the mask is easily 255.0. Right? Looks good. Great. You want me to give a URL, right? So I can give it as WSA dot, you know, bits, probably bits.com or .in, right? Please answer yes or no. Would you like to configure oh sorry, that was a mistake. Okay, so it was asking me to would you like to configure an IP address? So okay, that was a mistake. So it's going to be no, I don't want IPv6. Okay, host name. Now I'm going to put in WSA dot probably bits dot in. Right, you can give any host names. I'm going to use this. And do you want to enable FTP? Probably yeah. Let's put an S. Which port do you want to? I think 21 is fine. So let me go with that. SSH probably I don't want. Right, I don't want SSH. I'm gonna leave that. And once done with SSH, I'm gonna continue with the HTTP. So I'm gonna go with HTTP. Which port do I want? It's 8080. Yeah, I think we'll keep it at 8080. Do you want HTTPS? Yes, we want HTTPS, and the port is 8443. Yeah, I think that should be fine as well, right? Do you really wish to use a demo certificate? Yes, and both should be you put a S over here as well, and I think we are good. So we have configured all of this. And once, so in WSA you need to always commit your changes. So you're going to commit it. I don't want to commit comments. I need not put comments. So once you have typed in commit, all the changes will be committed. Now if it is all committed, let's probably go and reload the device once, right? Basically let's restart it, and once we do that, take a couple of minutes for that, right? Meanwhile, let's see what we have to do next. I hope the license is already there, which means I don't have to do it, but let's check that. Okay, so now let's wait for this to restart. Hope it's going to come up. It will start coming up now. Yeah, it's up. So let me log in. So the default username is admin and the default password is ironport. Still coming up. Yeah, I think it has come up. Let me log in again. So the WSA, generally we are going to monitor it, or we are going to manage it using the web interface, right? So now we are going to go to that interface, which is, I think it's still coming up. Let's give it a minute. Takes a bit of time to come up. Maybe we can try our luck if it has already come up. The IP address which I gave is 192.1.200.50, and looks like probably, okay, the port is going to be probably 4043. No? Yeah, okay, now it should come. HTTP 8080. Sorry, it's not 843. My bad. I think this has to be HTTP. Did I make a mistake? It's 192.1.200.50 and :8080.200.50, 8080, and it's HTTP. Should work. Yeah, okay, now it works. Right, so let me log in. It's admin, and the password is ironport, right? Okay, my bad. So ironport. So it's going to be Control X. Let me just put it here. Should work now. Just give it a minute to come up while we will see what has to be done next. So the first thing is we have to check if the licenses are there. So how do we do this? So this is the view which has come up, right? You can see my login successful. Now the first thing we do is we go to system administration, and we go to system setup wizard. Okay, so we go into system setup wizard, and we start configuring. What do we start? We will start with the default host name, which is WSA dot, let me use bits.in, right? Pretty good. And okay, the DNS servers. What DNS servers do you want me to use? We are going to use probably the 200.2, right, which is my R2, which is my DNS server. So I'm going to configure that. And what else? We will I think rest of the things we're going to leave same. We're going to go to the next step here. And is there a proxy, web proxy in your network? Probably let's keep it as it is and not touch this. Let's go to the next piece. This is where we configure the management port. So these are the different ports which are available. You have management, you have P1 and T1 and T2. We are basically going to use only M1. M1 generally used for both management as well as data or the web traffic. P1 can again be used as optional, if you're using M1 for data, you can probably use M1 only for management and use P1 for data as well. But in our case, we are basically going to use M1 for both our management and data purposes, right? So the IP address is 192.1.200.50/24, right? That's the IP address. It should be fine. And do we have to do anything else? Nothing. So we go to the next. We keep this as default as well. Default gateway is very important. So default gateway, we're going to configure again 192.1.200.2, right? And do we have to do anything else? Nothing. We go to the next. For now, let's retain it as transparent redirection, right? It's actually a WCCP v2 router, but we are going to configure this later, so I'm going to keep it like this for now. But this is the place where we have to do the transparent redirection configuration. I mean, we did it on the router in terms of WCCP protocol, but we have to do it on the WSA as well. But we will do this again later. Let's pause it for now and let's assume that there is no redirection happening. So passphrase, right? So passphrase, I'm going to like explicitly enter a passphrase which is iron port 2018 with a question mark. Probably I think that should work. Iron port 2018 with a question mark, right? System alerts, you want to send these alerts to someone. Whom will you send it to? So we need to just enter a email ID for now. Could be any email ID, so it could be like something like probably like, let's say, admin at abc.com, right? I'm just setting up a dummy email ID. And the SMTP server, I'm going to use again a dummy address which is 192.1.200.25 as a dummy SMTP server, right? I think that should be fine. Like everything looks good. I'm going to go to the next. So retain all of this as well. Next, and I think we are done. So this is the whole configuration which we have done just now. We will install this configuration. Okay, so immediately you get this. The reason being it switches to the domain. So what you could do is you will have to just go back and use your 192.1.200.50 instead, and I think that should be good if you log in, right? Yeah, so let's check. I think it should be good. Yeah, all right, so what do we do next? Let's do so that was the first part, which is the basic setup which we did, and that is like mandatory, you need to do that. But now let's do the important part, which is configuring my WCCP on my WSA. So how do we do that? We go to network, we go to transparent redirection, we click on edit device, right? We had earlier selected it to be layer 4 switch or no device, but actually it's going to be WCCP v2 router. Submit. Right, we are going to add a service. Right, we'll add a service, and let's create a service called as edge router. Right, let's create a service called edge router. The service ID is very important. We had given the service ID as 99 earlier, so we're going to use the same service ID even now, right? And what else? The ports are very important, so we're going to use the ports of 80 and 8000 as well, right? So these are the two ports or the traffic which has to be redirected to my WSA. And the rest of the things we're going to keep it here. Remote IP addresses, right? Yeah, so the IP addresses with which you have to pair or with which you have to redirect is 200.2. okay, and the rest of the things we do have some kind of security, right? So it's going to be Cisco 11. I think that's what we had set up on the other side. It was Cisco 11. I can check that. I do have it over here. It was Cisco 11, right, over here. So we're going to use the same thing, and that should be submit. So we have done that. Now every time you do any changes over here, you need to commit the changes as well. So I'm going to commit this, commit changes. Right, so once we have committed the changes, we can go back to the router and see if the WCCP relationship is coming up, right? So maybe let's give it a couple of minutes. We should get a syslog here actually. It's not a com. Oh yeah, so you can see a syslog coming up here. Service 99 has been acquired. So we can now check the output of show IP WCCP and the key which is 99, and we're gonna run the command view. You can see that it has clients, right? The clients is 192.1.200.50, which is nothing but my WSA. So the WCCP protocol has been initiated and the pairing has finished, right, between my R2 and my WSA, and that's why you see this. So now we'll move to the next step, which is basically going to probably one important step which many people forget is you need to go under web proxy, right? So under the web proxy, we now need to, we see that the ports which are basically configured is 80 and 3123, but the 8000 port is missing. So you need to change the settings and add that port as well, right? Otherwise the traffic will not be redirected properly. So it's going to be 8000, right? Once you're done with that, let's submit. And yeah, so you have done that, and let's commit it as well, right? So let's commit changes. Great. So we have done with the proxy setting, which is very important. Many people miss this, and as a result you won't see the traffic redirection happening the right way. So now we will start with creating identities, right? This is very interesting. So we can create identities. Let's go to identification profiles. So let's say that our organization has two set of roles, which is executives and sales, right? So let's create two different profiles. We'll call it as execs and sales. So you click on add identification profile, right? So let's create the first one being execs, right? Skip the description, nothing, it's not compulsory. And we need the set of IP addresses, right? We are going to define the IP addresses. 192 probably 1 dot let's go to 200.1 to 75, right? From dot 1 to 75 we're going to use it for execs, right? So we're going to submit this. It's a bit slow, the VM, right? But I think it should be fine. So we have created execs. Let's on the similar lines go and create the other policy, one which is my sales, right? So let's create one more. So let's call this sales, and the IP address here is going to be 192.1.200. From 76 we're going to use 150. Okay, so this are a range of IP addresses we're going to use for the sales, right? It's basically we are creating two different buckets, right, for the WSA to understand what are the various identification profiles. right? So we're gonna submit this. Okay, so that was step number 6, right? What do we do next? So once you create the identification profiles, the step number 7 is very interesting, which is okay, give me a minute. Yeah, so let's commit this till then. Let's commit changes. So we have created 2 different identification profiles. Now we are going to the actual policies, right? We're going to create very interesting policies. We'll start with the access policies. So let's go to access policies over here. So in the access policy, we'll create add a policy, right? And what is the policy? We are going to create policies for my salespeople, right? So let's go and create a policy for the salespeople. Call it as a sales policy. And over here, I can select one or more identification profiles, and this is the place where I select the sales profile, right? So that's the only thing we do here. We're gonna press on submit, right? So we have the sales policy here. Now let's go down and do some fun things. So on the URL, let's create this. Click on the URL filtering. Imagine we want to ban people from gambling. So we go and block the gambling websites, and we can also block, say, pornography, right? So let's go and block pornography as well. So once we have done that, we can go and submit this. Right? Let's also do applications, right? So if you go on to the application policies, this is very interesting. So it actually gives you more granular view. For example, we can go and define some custom settings, which means I can go to Facebook and block certain things. Imagine I don't want my clients to text on Facebook, right? I don't want them to use Facebook chat, so I can go down here and completely block it, right? Apply. I can also prevent them from using Facebook photos, right? So I can again go and apply. So these are the 2 things which I've applied. So I'll go and submit this as well. Right, pretty good. And once we have these both, let me probably go and commit. Right, so there you go. We have blocked a couple of things, and now it's time to test it if it really works. So what do? We will go and we'll go to the browser on my Windows machine, which is here. I was using the browser on my local laptop, so I can't test it from there. I'll have to use it from here. Right, so let me go down to the ESPN, right? I already have ESPN. Let me refresh this. Okay, so the ESPN works, which means because I did not block it, I've allowed all the sports websites, right? But I blocked gambling websites, right? So which means if I go and if I try to reach out to www.gamble.com, you can see the page is not displayed, which means it is getting blocked, right? What if I also want to probably say check out a pornography website, right? I can see that it is blocked as well because I defined that in the policy, right? Let me also show you one thing. Let me go back to ESPN. So I have logged into ESPN right now, and I will show you what's happening on my R1. My R1 basically has a HTTP server, So if I go to R1 and do show IP HTTP, sorry, show IP HTTP server history. So if I do that, you can see that um, the client, right, the latest request, we see the latest request, the IP address from where the server is getting the request is 192.1.200.50 and not 192.1.200.91. So 91 is my PC and 50 is my WSA. So basically, though the request is originated from here, right, when I go to the browser and click enter over here, the request is actually coming from the PC, but it is going to R2, coming to WSA, and WSA is actually creating a new request and sending it outside, and that's why the source IP address is 192.1.200.50 and not .91, right? That's something which I wanted to show you. So we blocked a couple of things. So we blocked pornography and we blocked gambling as well, right? Pretty good. Now next, what do you do? So let's do something else. Let's create a custom policy, right? Let's create a custom URL category. So how do we do that? Let's go back to let's go back here. Let's go to something called as custom URL categories, right? So here we are going to create, what are we trying to do here? Let me explain that. So we are basically going to block ESPN, but at the same time we are going to allow all the other sports channels or sports URLs, right? That's what I want to accomplish. So I'm going to create something called as a sales blacklist, right? So I've created something called as a sales blacklist, and I'm going to define my www.espn.com, right? I also will define everything .espn.com as well, right? So once I do that, I'm going to submit, and so we have a blacklist created. Let me commit this, and we will go back to so we have created a custom category, but we will have to go and add this custom category. So we'll go back to our access policies. So we go back to access policies and we go to the URL filtering part, right? And here what we are going to do is we are going to select some custom policies. So let's select let's do include in policy, let's do an apply, and what do we have to do? We are supposed to block it, right? So we are going to block ESPN, right? So we're going to submit this, okay, and now we are going to commit this. Great. So if you observe, ESPN was earlier working, right? But now once this commit is done, ESPN will stop working, and that's what I actually wanted to show you guys. So this is ESPN. Now let me go and refresh it. You can see that ESPN has been blocked, right? Pretty good. So what we accomplished just now was that we blocked ESPN, right? Whereas the other sports categories would be working. Now let me also show you the other one last part, which is again very interesting. So what I want to do, the reverse thing, which means I would like to allow CNN, but at the same time block the entire other news categories. Imagine I don't want to visit any news categories, but I want to just allow CNN. How would I do that? Again, we are going to do it using the the same way which we did earlier. We're going to start with the custom URLs. So we'll create add custom category, right? Category name is whitelist. Let's call it as whitelist. So whitelist, right? And we are going to write www.cnn.com, right? And let's also include all the other CNNs, right? So that's good. and we'll submit. Let's probably commit as well. So once we have done that, let's go back to my access policies, and let's go back to the sales here, URL filtering, and let's select custom categories, which means I have to select the whitelist one, include in the policy, apply, and we are basically going to allow, right? So CNN is basically going to be allowed, but also let's go down and let's block news channels, which is, this is the news, and I'm going to block it, right? So I'm blocking all the news channels, but at the same time allowing only CNN, right? So let me submit this. And let me commit this, right? So in my DNS I have two options, one is CNN and one is BBC, and it has been committed. So if I go back here, and if you see, the CNN actually would work. See, it is giving me the ask for the password. I forgot the password. What was it? Let me check it. So it was Cisco 123, right, which is pretty good. So I'm gonna press OK, and there you go, the CNN worked. Whereas do you think BBC will work? It should not, right? Because I have blocked all the other news channels, and there you see the news channels are blocked, the news URLs are blocked, right? So that was a very interesting case of custom categories, right? So where I defined custom categories, and then I went and applied it on my access policies. So that is everything which I wanted to show you guys using the WSA. Hope you guys liked it, and do tune in later for new set of videos on some new security appliances. Thank you.